You're well taken points. But there was, of course, John Marshall Harlan, the great dissenter, who dissented in Wong Kim Ark and later gave a bunch of lectures. And he posed the question about the sojourners. Suppose an English father and mother went down to the hot springs to get rid of the gout, and while there they have a child, now back in England. Is that child a citizen of the United States, born of the jurisdiction thereof by mere accident of birth? And he says, under Wong Kim Ark, he is. And he continues, I was one of the minority, and of course I was wrong. Now,
Pam Bondi is gone. Fired April 3rd, 2026. 14 months on the job, the shortest run by a confirmed attorney general in 6 decades. The official reason was never stated. It didn't need to be. Trump had been publicly humiliating her since September, posting on Truth Social by name, Pam: ordering prosecutions of his enemies, Comey, Letitia James, Adam Schiff, all named, all targeted, none convicted. That is the full story of her tenure. She arrived promising to restore integrity to the Justice Department. On day 1, she got to work on the opposite, converting the DOJ into an instrument of political retribution. And when the courts, the grand juries, and the basic laws of evidence refused to cooperate, Trump didn't blame the impossible mission. He blamed the messenger. What this legal analyst said in this clip, before the firing, is the most honest explanation of what went wrong. And it applies to every single failed prosecution that...
We have 12 uncontradicted treatises that say the opposite, that is not what Wong Kim Ark means, and that's not the meaning of the clause. But also, I'd make a more fundamental point. When you're looking at Wong Kim Ark, one of the dissent has this dominant theme that like you can't be doing this because you can't make we all agree, or it's obvious, that the children of temporary visitors do not become citizens. And how does the majority opinion address that? It says domicile 3 times when it recites the legal rule. It says permanent residence and domicile when it decides the holding. So the court should be bound by what it says. This is what we're deciding. And again, on page 75, it says this is the single question. Now, there's been a lot of discussion up to that point, but at the very end, they said the single question we've decided is the citizenship status of the children of Chinese immigrants with a permanent residence and domicile in the United States.
do you think Native Americans today are birthright citizens under your text?
Followed. Procedural missteps. That's the polite way to say it. The Comey indictment was thrown out because the prosecutor who filed it had been illegally appointed, a textbook, avoidable error. The Letitia James case was rejected by a grand jury not once but twice. The Powell investigation, targeting a sitting Federal Reserve chairman, was thrown out by a federal judge who wrote that the government's justifications were so thin they could only be called pretextual. 3 flagship prosecutions, 3 total failures, 0 convictions. And this wasn't happening in isolation. While Bondi's team was chasing Trump's enemies with no evidence, they were quietly dropping over 23,000 legitimate criminal investigations, including 900-plus fraud cases and more than 1,000 terrorism referrals. Career prosecutors watched years of built cases get abandoned.
Justice Gorsuch?
Just to follow up on that point, General, one interesting counterpoint about the understanding of Wong Kim Ark that followed with respect to temporary sojourners. And I take you guys...
While resources flooded into political theater, the pressure to perform didn't produce results. It produced wreckage. Trump's Truth Social post did something that should have disqualified the prosecutions before they were filed. It named the defendants and ordered the indictments. In public, that is not how legitimate criminal investigations work. That is not how they have ever worked in American legal history. Bondi knew it. Her prosecutors knew it. They moved forward anyway. The Epstein Files chapter follows the same arc. She appeared at the White House with binders stamped with the DOJ seal promising bombshell disclosures. Trump's own chief of staff later said she gave supporters binders full of nothingness. Congress ultimately had to force the release of the actual files by passing a law, because the AG's theatrical promise produced nothing actionable. Legal historian Harry Litman called her tenure the worst of any attorney general, not because she failed Trump, but because of what she was willing to do in the attempt. reprisal prosecutions, evidence-free subpoenas, defiance of court orders on...
And later gave a bunch of lectures. And he posed the question about the sojourners. Suppose an English father and mother went down to the hot springs to get rid of the gout. And while there, they have a child, now back in England. Is that child a citizen of the United States, born of the jurisdiction thereof by mere accident of birth? And he says, under Wong Kim Ark, he is. And he continues, I was one of the minority, and of course I was wrong. Now,
deportations. The damage to the institution's credibility is not cosmetic. It will outlast every headline from the past 14 months. Pam Bondi leaves behind a Justice Department that lost in court so many times that a federal judge felt compelled to warn the government that its cases will be dismissed if it keeps breaking the law while prosecuting others. Her replacement, Todd Blanche, Trump's own former personal defense attorney, now inherits every open case, every skeptical judge, every grand jury that already said no. A new face doesn't change the evidence. It doesn't change the law. It doesn't change the fact that you cannot indict your way to a conviction when there is nothing to indict on. Here is the line that cuts through everything. Trump wanted scalps. Courts require evidence. Those two things are incompatible. That incompatibility destroyed Bondi's tenure, and it will pressure every AG who follows her for as long as Trump is in office. The courts held. That is the takeaway that gets lost in the firing narrative. Not that Bondi was weak or disloyal, but that judges, grand jurors, and rules of evidence refused to bend to a Truth Social post. The rule of law worked, imperfectly and slowly, but it worked. Watch what comes next. The new AG faces the identical problem with no better tools to solve it. If this breakdown helped you see the full picture, subscribe, share this video, and tell us in the comments, can the DOJ recover from this? The answer matters more than the headline.